one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -6, in Smiths Falls, -5 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It is a startling figure from the business community. Across the country, that sector has racked up an estimated $135 billion in debt. Here's our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
The average debt that's owed by Canadian small business operators is $170,000. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is out with its latest warning this morning that despite low-interest loans being offered by governments and banks, well, that debt is not free and will take years to dig out from. 3/4 of businesses say they're looking at a payback time frame of over a year. 10% say they'll never be able to repay it all, raising some questions about small business viability. Hardest hit sectors, according to the CFIB, are those which have been closed the longest: hospitality, tourism, and social services. Businesses in Ontario are above the national average for debt accumulation at nearly $208,000, with many business restrictions still in place. At the Business Centre, I'm Mike Eppel.
Ottawa police quite busy during the snowfall and aftermath. According to OPS, 89 collisions on the roads between 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon and 6 o'clock this morning. On average, police typically respond to up to 40 incidents on the roads every day, so this is double more. There is a parking ban now in effect at least until 7 tonight. We received 14 centimeters of snow in the city yesterday. So far, the winter parking ban has been put in place 5 other times. Those parking restrictions have resulted in almost 18,000 tickets issued by the city. City News Time, 9:02, and now your forecast. Here is meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It'll be cleanup day today after yesterday's snowfall. We've already reached our high for the day. It was near the freezing mark in many areas early this morning. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about -5, feeling like -10 with the wind. Chance of flurries tonight, a low near -18, and for tomorrow, sun and cloud near 0. For today, already reached the high, 0.
And right now in Ottawa, it's -6 degrees. In Smiths Falls right now, it's -5. There are concerning signs in our city about COVID infection rates. The Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Vera Etches, says we're simply headed in the wrong direction.
The majority of things that we monitor to tell us about the level of COVID in Ottawa are going up.
Etches says the upward trend is very concerning because the higher it goes, the harder it is to bring it back under control. The doctor says we were better with infection rates a couple of weeks ago, even last week. But if we continue on this trend, we'll be back in the red restriction zone in Ottawa. Much more with Dr. Etches coming up on the Rob Snow Show just after 11 o'clock this morning. Today is the first day seniors across the river can make an appointment for a vaccine. Residents in the Western Quebec area, 85 years and older, can book online. The bookings actually opened at 8 o'clock. The province of Quebec says according to scheduled vaccine deliveries, Gatineau residents can get their first shot starting on March 10th. City News Time, 9:03. Canada's climate change minister says he's looking forward to the country partnership with the United States on lowering greenhouse gas emissions. Jonathan Wilkinson says he expects the two countries to challenge each other to set ever more ambitious emission reduction targets as they work together to make the world more sustainable.
So the focus for us over the next 2 months is going to be looking at how we can go farther based on assessment of what things we think the provinces and territories would be willing to do in terms of enhanced ambition, what we can work on together with the United States.
Now, Wilkinson did meet virtually on Wednesday with his U.S. counterpart, John Kerry, President Joe Biden's special envoy on climate. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All dug out and nowhere to go. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV and City News. Great to be with you again this morning. Thanks again for choosing to spend part of the day with us. Great program coming up. Vaccines, the vaccine rollout. That's the big theme for us this morning. As you heard with Andrew, Dr. Vera Etches coming up on the show. Ottawa's medical officer of health. Had a chance to speak with her this morning. Play that for you a bit later. There is this plan, as you know, to vaccinate people over the age of 80 from some high-risk communities in the city of Ottawa, starting as soon as next week. And we're going to dig into that part of the story as well with a spokesperson from the Southeast Ottawa Community Health Centre. And we'll get some political reaction to the Ford government's vaccine rollout plan. You know, the feds are supposed to procure the vaccine. And then the provinces, their job is to kind of organize, right, along with the local officials and the municipalities and the local health units, supposed to organize and get those shots into people's arms. And look, certainly, you know, we've had a time, haven't we, together pounding away at the Trudeau government for the job that it's been doing, not a very good one, on the vaccine procurement side of things. Yeah, I looked up some data this morning. Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker says Canada is now averaging, and this is the high number now, 44,000 doses a day. 44,000 doses a day. Meantime, in the United States, the country is averaging 1.3 million doses a day. A day. Here, 44,000 there, 1.3 million. And the same vaccine tracker says the United States will achieve herd immunity 11 months from now, while in Canada it's now 3.3 years at current vaccination rates. Also a personal best for Canada. Way to go, Trudeau. That's all on the Trudeau government, though, which was, look, it was quick off the mark, right? To do the big victory lap, give itself a standing ovation for vaccine procurement. Look at how awesome we are. And then things went right off the rails there for a little while, didn't they? And now the whole country's playing catch up compared to many of our peer countries. But that does not mean that Doug Ford's job performance is beyond reproach. And he was being beaten up and batted around yesterday by his political opponents for his government's part in the vaccine rollout, and he was having none of it.
Oh, I'm going to respectfully disagree. We're far behind. We're leading the whole country. We're doing more than Alberta, BC. You combine all the vaccinations in the entire country. Ontario's doing more, so I don't know how we're falling behind on that. But in saying that, let's look at Alberta.
All right. Okay. It's still, Premier, with all due respect, it's just not going fast enough for a great many people. If you're over the age of 60, under Premier Ford's plan, you're not supposed to get a vaccine until sometime after Canada Day. If you're over the age of 70, not till after May 1st will you be getting a shot in the arm if you're over the age of 70. And a lot of people think that's not good enough. And it's not good enough that an online portal for booking appointments won't go live until the middle of March. March 15th, 18 days from now. That's what's happening provincially here in Ontario, while in some other provinces you can book online already and get an appointment. Your appointment might not be until June, but you can get an appointment, right? And based on what I've read, just because that online booking portal is going live in 18 days, it doesn't mean people are going to actually be able to book appointments. Might take many, many, many months before people can even book an appointment. So there's a lot of what? There's a lot of finger pointing going on. For the last several weeks, I was pointing my finger at Mr. Trudeau. You screwed up, buddy. And you need a haircut really, really bad. And now those fingers are turning toward the direction of Ford Nation, and you need a haircut too, Premier Ford. But none of this is hurting, interestingly enough, none of this is hurting Doug Ford politically. There is a report in Maclean's today. There's a long time to go until the next Ontario election. It's 16 months from now. But so far, the voters are still sticking with Doug Ford in a big, big way. And approve of the job that he has done during this pandemic. Maclean's says if the election was held today, it would be Ford Nation in a landslide. The Doug Ford Progressive Conservative Party would cruise to victory. They have an 18-point lead in the polls. PC's 43, Liberals 25, NDP 22. We're going to talk about how Doug Ford's doing these days, the province's vaccination rollout plan with Post-Media columnist and author Randall Denley coming up in, just a few minutes from now. And we're going to do the Talkback Hour. Of course, we're going to do the Talkback Hour because that's our favorite hour of the day around here. And it's the hottest radio in town. It's an hour of phone calls. It's an hour of opinion. And I hope you take part today. And this is what I want to ask you. Okay? I asked Dr. Etches about this morning. Expectations. You know, where we were a year ago and where we are now and our expectations. It has been 11 and a half months. Okay. We've been living this life for 11 and a half months. 11 and a half months of pandemic life. It was March 11th of last year. The declaration of the pandemic by the World Health Organization. That is 11 months and 14 days ago. So you could say it hasn't even been a year. It hasn't even been a year. 2 weeks from today, it will have been 1 year. 1 year of pandemic life, a not so happy anniversary. So during the Talkback Hour, I want to do a rapid poll. We haven't done one of these in a while during the Talkback Hour, and I want your honest opinion, okay? You think about where we've been and kind of where we are now. And we're going to keep track of your opinions. And I want to see by the end of the hour if there's kind of like a clear and obvious prevailing opinion. 11 months and 2 weeks into this, people are getting vaccinated in Canada. If you had said that a year ago, that in 11 months people will be getting vaccinated, a lot of people would have thought you were crazy. I remember back in March, April last year interviewing scientists on the radio, and they would say 2 years, maybe 2 years to get a vaccine. 11 and a half months, and people are getting vaccinated. Yet it's not at the same rate as some people in other countries, like our friends in the United States and the United Kingdom, or our friends in Indonesia, or our friends in Bangladesh, for example. But in Canada, 44,000 doses a day. And it hasn't been a year yet. It's been 11 and a half months. So, with that being said, here's what I want to ask you during the Talkback Hour. David and I are going to keep track of your answers. Would you say, when it comes to vaccines, in the here and now, are we ahead of where you thought we'd be by now, by February of 2021? Are we behind where you thought we'd be behind schedule, so to speak? You know, if I asked you, say in April of last year, where do you think we're going to be in February of 2021? Do you think we'll be getting vaccinated? What would you say, right? Or would you say we're just about on schedule of where I thought we'd be? Slowly, people are getting vaccinated. I want to take as many calls as I can this morning on that question, kind of a Goldilocks question, right? Are we ahead of where you thought we'd be? Are we behind where you thought we'd be? Are we just about right, on schedule? Your honest opinion this morning, The Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Snowsuit Fund is in almost its 40th year. We've been helping low-income families keep children warm during our cold winters in Ottawa. Last season, we distributed over 16,000 snowsuits to families in our Ottawa area. Well, it originally started with just a handful of snowsuits being handed out, and it has now grown to 16,000 each year. All families must qualify for a snowsuit. We have a eligibility criteria that we follow, and it's based on low income. We follow the Stats Canada guidelines. If families are receiving assistance, they receive a snowsuit from us if they need one. We are no government funding. We are supported by the community. All our donations come from generous supporters in the community. People can donate directly to the Snowsuit Fund. $50 buys a brand new snowsuit for a child in need. Online you can do through Canada Helps or directly through the Snowsuit Fund. Well, the Snowsuit Fund has really had to change its operation this season with the physical distancing. Normally we have many families coming in at the same time. We are now by appointment only. We don't know if our numbers will increase, but we expect that they will go up this season. Unfortunately, this season we are not able to have the volunteers due to the spacing. Last season we had over 700 volunteers, but this year we have only allowing 8 volunteers, and they have to be continual volunteers on a regular basis. So we're not changing and introducing new people in the depot.
It's just a great charity to get involved in, and it's really when you come here and see what happens at the depot that it really starts to hook you when you see people walk in. I mean, it's changed a lot this year in terms of how the depot is working, but I was here in the days when families would show up and there could be anywhere from a mother and a single child to 12 family members, getting snowsuits and running back to the warehouse and getting different colors and different sizes. And the one constant that has always stuck with me is when you take a snowsuit out and you see a child's face. I mean, if you want to see some bright eyes and some wide grins, it's amazing. When they leave here, they're just incredibly happy.
Well, I think this year with COVID, I think it's very important that children have the opportunity to play outside and have a warm snowsuit. And thanks to the generous community, we are fortunate to provide these snowsuits to them. And I hope that once again we can count on their support.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Hey, lots to cover off with Randall Denley, post-media columnist and author. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
You have read a draft for Ottawa's new official plan, and you had a column in the Citizen about it this week, and some of the details, well, they're absolutely stunning and dumbfounding, and you call it planning run amok. Walk us through some of the goofier things in the official plan.
What planners and their supporters on council would like to do is just reinvent the majority of the city. And I'm talking about an area that would stretch from Bayshore to Blair Road and considerably south. So any neighborhood that would have been built 1970 and prior is going to be affected. And in most of those neighborhoods, people are very familiar with them. There's a lot of bungalows and older houses, big trees. That's what gives them their value. But that's no good anymore, Rob. Mm-hmm. We just can't have that kind of thing. So what we need now is 3, 4-story buildings, 6-story buildings, 9-story buildings, totally different kind of a city where everything goes up. Not, too high, but up. And everybody would walk or cycle, take transit.
Of course.
Cars would still be allowed.
Oh, at least they'll be allowed.
Well, they're allowed, but as long as they don't interfere with the walking, the cycling, or the transit. Very much a secondary use, but, they acknowledge, I guess some people are still going to have them, but no more surface parking lots, a drive-through like a Tim Hortons. No, you can't add any of those. Service centers, car dealerships, no more of those things can be.
No gas stations, right? No gas stations.
No, because we're going to wish away the car.
Right, because of course
you're going to come here to see how we did it too.
For example, sorry, Randall, sorry to interrupt. You have a great set of examples about you say a mature neighborhood with lots of expensive homes would be Alta Vista, for example, and But who do they think? A house in Alta Vista now, even a modest house in Alta Vista. If you can find one for $1 million, you're doing pretty well. So, of course, people who buy $1 million homes in Alta Vista, they don't own cars, right?
No, because rich people, they probably have chauffeurs that just pick them up at the curb. That's the new lifestyle, I guess. But I've heard a lot from people in Alta Vista, and they're very concerned about this because they're trying to drive density up in Alta Vista ultimately to about 4 times what it is now. The thing I thought was most egregious in all this, Rob, is that a lot of these houses are older, right? And somebody might say, look, there's a little bungalow for 1952, and it's in pretty poor shape, but I'm going to buy it for the lot, essentially, and I'm going to put myself a nice new bungalow or 2-story house there, and I'll be very happy with that. It's expensive, but, people have done that all over the city.
Sure.
That's no good anymore.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to replace a bungalow with a bungalow, it has to be exactly the same location on the lot and exactly the same size is the one that's there now. So if you want a brand new, 1,000 square foot bungalow, knock yourself out. But if you're not doing that, well, then you got to get into something bigger. And a single family home just doesn't figure into the plans because bigger is 3 stories, 4 is okay. How many units? Well, they don't know yet for sure. But the number 1 is not going to be on the list. So you're really saying to people in a huge number of neighborhoods across the city that we're just not allowing single-family homes anymore. They're just too consumptive of space, I guess. So every time one comes up, the only way that can be changed or redeveloped is to put a multi-unit building on that space.
Wow.
And, some of that is not terrible, but this is command and control planning. It's just that it's not that you can do that.
Right.
It's that you must do it. And that's the big difference.
That's the big difference. I mean, a lot of that is happening already, but, the idea that, a 1950s bungalow is being torn down and it's replaced by, a nice 4-unit infill project. I mean, that's nothing new. This essentially mandates development.
Yeah, and I think when you peel back what drives this, if you're a person who loves intensification, and there's plenty who do, you don't want any suburban growth, as little as possible. Mm-hmm. But you still have to be able to show the province that we can handle future growth. How do we do that? We have to have a huge amount of growth somewhat plausibly located inside the existing city. Say, well, we're never going to get there if it's just, they tore down one house and then put up 2 semis, which is a lot. Okay, well, it doubled the lot capacity, not nearly enough. No, we need, 6, 9, 12 units to get the numbers. So we're just going to say that's what you have to do then. And it doesn't really matter what you want to do as the owner of the lot. It's just, this is what you have to do.
I'm just quoting from your column. If anything is built within 400 meters of a rapid transit station, it must be at least 3 stories.
Yeah, because, you can walk 400 meters. Come on. So we need multi-unit buildings there, and, parking's no good. It's a very unfriendly strategy for older people, too, at a time when there's a lot of, the aging population is increasing rapidly, as everybody knows, and yet now you're saying to people, those, 1-floor bungalows you might like to live in, no, you can't have those anymore. Well, what about stuff? Well, you got the walkable neighborhood. Well, I use a walker. Oh, that's too bad. Get going. It's just, it's as if everybody who was going to live here was 35 to 40 years old, into cycling, really wants to live in an urban area, but there's just not enough urban area. So what do? We'll turn almost the entire city into sort of a downtownish urban area.
Get your Presto card. Okay. I encourage everyone, read Randall Denley's column in The Citizen this week and some of the details that are in there about the official plan should be called the Central Plan. Okay. Yeah. All right. I want to ask you, in your capacity writing about the Ford government for the National Post, a lot of details this week, and General Rick Hillier is going to be on our show tomorrow morning on the vaccine rollout. Premier Ford and Hillier in the spotlight yesterday. What do you think about what they're offering here for a vaccine plan?
I think it's fine. There's reasonable concern that this province-wide portal system isn't going to work. I think it makes sense in that there's 34 public health units in Ontario, and a lot of them are very small. How well equipped are they going to be to have their own system? Not very, I would think. So it's useful to them in that way. But, we can see here in Ottawa, they're well organized to start. If that system doesn't work, they're prepared to drive around it. In fact, they're already going ahead with vaccinating 80-year-olds in neighborhoods where the highest incidence of COVID exists. So that makes sense. Guelph's doing the same thing. Part of the criticism of Ontario's approach is that, it's so decentralized. They're relying on these 34 public health units. It's like, that's crazy. Shouldn't everything be done centrally? I mean, we deliver public health locally. It doesn't matter to us in Ottawa what people are doing in Windsor or the Sioux. That's their problem to deal with, and nobody knows it better than them. But the idea that everything has to be central, that doesn't make sense to me. And, should the portal be ready sooner? I think it should have been. It didn't exactly creep up on us that eventually we'd have vaccines. But, at the same time, they're talking the first significant supply is going to be the last week in March, then 2 weeks after that for more. So there's not a big disconnect between having vaccine available in the province and having this portal up and running. But, I think we are seeing encouraging signs that public health units, they got the vaccine, they know what needs to be done, they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway, which is much better than putting things through level after level of bureaucracy, which always slows it down.
You don't think they're behind schedule?
Well, I think the whole country's behind schedule because we haven't been able to get vaccines. We're way, way behind where we would expect to be compared to other similar countries. That's not on the province in the slightest. In my opinion, that's Trudeau and the federal government. They just haven't gotten the job done. Now, finally they say numbers are coming. We'll get 6 million doses of vaccine by the end of March. We probably will because we're close enough now that it ought to be reliable. But still, when you think, okay, 2 doses per person, size of the population, that's like, less than 10% of Canadians, right? So it's not exactly a home run. It's a start of a better flow, but we're still a long ways from having enough vaccine to really do the job. So I'm not going to get too worried about how effective we are at, moving out snap, snap, snap until we've got more vaccine than we can put in people's arms. And I think we're some ways from that now.
Okay. Always great to hear from you, Randall Denley. Thank you again for the time this morning.
My pleasure, Rob. Thanks a lot.
That's author and columnist Randall Denley. Read him in both the Ottawa Citizen and the National Post. So coming up right after the news, more on some local issues. We'll be joined by Fred Sherwin. He is the publisher of the Orléans Star and former city councillor for Bay Ward, Mark Taylor. Coming up right after the 9:30 news here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's -5 degrees. Here's what's making news right now. 14 centimeters of snow we received has city crews out clearing that heavy, wet load. There is a parking ban in effect, at least until 7 o'clock tonight on city streets. If not, you could be fined. In the 5 previous storms that initiated the parking ban, close to 18,000 tickets were issued. Police reported they also attended 89 crashes between 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon and 6 o'clock this morning. Pandemic bans are affecting people psychologically. The chief medical officer of health says when restrictions are lifted, it leads to a relaxed feeling in following of guidelines, and that can lead to yet another surge. Dr. Vera Etches says Ottawa indicators are leading us toward the red restriction zone again unless we refocus on pandemic restrictions. A former military chief now under investigation following allegations of misconduct. Just months after taking over the job from General Jonathan Vance, Admiral Art MacDonald is stepping down as Chief of Defence Staff. Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan says MacDonald left the post voluntarily. A military investigation was launched looking into allegations. Sajjan did not specify what the allegations are. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Time to dig into some city issues. We're joined this morning by Mark Taylor. He's a former city councillor, used to represent Bay Ward. Vice President of Resource Development, United Way Eastern Ontario. Good morning, Mark. Welcome back. Great to hear from you.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And Fred Sherwin, who is the publisher of the Orléans Star. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Rob.
We have East End and, well, I don't know if you're still on the West End, Mark, but you used to represent West End. Where he's all over the place, but the city well represented. Fred, I'd like to start with getting your reaction to the details of the vaccination program. We had a big briefing yesterday by city officials. What do you think so far?
I mean, everything's going to depend on how many vaccines we get, and to be honest with you, it's kind of depressing. I mean, it's the more you look at it, we're 41st in the world now. Probably quickly heading down rather than up. Australia has just started their vaccination program this week. I don't have a whole lot of faith in it's one of those things that anything can go wrong, will go wrong.
Right.
You hope it's rolled out. I mean, we have headlines where they're starting to vaccinate people over the 80, but when you read the story, it's only for people in high-risk areas who are over the age of 80. In the UK, they've vaccinated 95% of everyone over the age of 70 already. So it's just that it just gets depressing.
So you're kind of a glass half empty kind of guy this morning, Fred.
Well, I mean, yeah, say look at the data.
Look at the data. Okay, fair enough. Mark, what do you think, Mark?
Well, listen, I don't want to be a contrarian to Fred, but, I tend to look at it as, locally anyway, the things we can affect and the things we can't, right? So the city of Ottawa can't do anything about the speed with which Canada is getting its vaccines or, how that distribution system is going. What we can do is we can look at how we're tending to our population with the allotment of vaccines we have. And I think, using the evidence-based data to determine which are the high-priority, high-risk areas, especially for our residents who are over 80 years old, and then targeting those areas 2 weeks ahead of where most municipalities in the rest of the province are going to be rolling out vaccines to that area. I think that's a good thing. And I know that public health and Ottawa's emergency management department and, they have a pretty crack logistics team that are working on rolling that out as best we can. So, to Fred's point, if we can get the vaccines faster or get that up to par with the rest of the world, that'd be fantastic. But, I think we're doing pretty good with what we've got to work with.
Okay, doing pretty good. Okay, there's some debate about, and I don't know if it's probably divided along partisan lines, but nevertheless, the Ford government is pretty much delegating authority to the 34 public health units across the province, saying, you know your communities, you work out the details, you book the community centers, and we'll take it from there, and we'll make sure you get the vaccine when we get the vaccine. Some people think it should be more, I don't know, centrally organized. I'd like to know what you think about that, Fred.
I sort of disagree with that. I think we're quite, like Mark says, we're quite capable of distributing the vaccines we get. I have faith in our people in rolling this out and making sure that the vaccines are getting in the arms. Where the frustration lies is in the number of the vaccines we're getting. And probably we might be a little better off starting slow, because if the tap opens up and they approve the AstraZeneca vaccine and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it was just approved yesterday for use in the United States. I think we're way behind in approvals of these vaccines. Mm-hmm. But once the tap starts opening up, then we can start ramping things up. It's just, how quickly we'll be able to do that and how organized are they. I mean, I'm 59 years old. You've been around for a long time, Rob, and you too, Mark. And how many times have we heard in the past that, we're ready to go when things are organized and then the hiccups start? It never runs as smoothly as they say.
No. Well, yeah. How many times? Do you mean in just the last 3 weeks, Fred? Yeah. But what about this idea of kind of like a decentralized organization, Mark, leaving a lot of the decision making up to the local officials? What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm biased this way, but okay. I mean, back during my time in office, I had the opportunity to work with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and of course, they're kind of the coordinator group for a lot of the interoperability between municipalities in Ontario, and it was always my experience that having more local autonomy was almost always a good thing, and I think in this particular case, it is too. Those 34 health units across Ontario, they already have an existing, contact and communications network. They are in contact probably weekly, if not more, with each other about how neighboring health units. I know here in Ottawa, the health units that are within United Way's catchment area, going all the way from Prescott Russell all the way up to Renfrew. Those three medical officers of health are in touch all the time, and they're talking to us all the time, and lots of other partners. So I think the opportunity for kind of regionalized coordination between health units is more present when the province devolves that autonomy and responsibility to local units.
But Mark, here's one quick issue, Mark. I'm doing a story right now. We're looking at the Orléans Health Hub out here, which is hopefully nearing completion. We can't get a date yet exactly when it would be completed. They're talking early summer. And then talking to the Montfort officials, there's been no talk yet on possibly using it as a vaccination center for the East End. I mean, it would be a perfect location. So when you start talking about it to be used as a vaccination center?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I'm not inside the wheelhouse anymore, so I can't speak to who they're talking to or what they're talking about. What I can say is I know that from our perspective at United Way, I was on a call the other day where folks were talking about different community buildings and organizations, properties being used as vaccination. So the setup and the rollout is happening. To your point, Fred, that I'm sure there is some eye somewhere to making sure that it's regionally balanced.
Yeah. So what is the plan for Orléans, Fred, as you know it right now? Will there actually be one of these clinics in Orléans, or will you have to go somewhere else?
It's still being discussed. It's still being
discussed.
In terms of locations. But logistically, if we're as far as behind as what some of the reports are saying, up to 6 months behind the rest of the G7 countries, we probably have a lot of time to figure it out. But I'd rather figure it out sooner rather than later.
Well, the Premier said yesterday that Ottawa, let's listen to this, Ottawa is leading the pack. We're leading the pack.
Maybe I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. I got to do it because we have so many great PHU, public health units. We have so many great hospitals. But you know who just, I don't know, who leads the pack all the time is Ottawa, Dr. Etches and Cam Love from Ottawa. Like, they never have to be told anything. They take it, they run with it, they jump ahead and just start moving forward, and they're just two incredible leaders.
Okay. Cameron Love, the CEO of the Ottawa Hospital there. So we're in the Premier's good graces anyway, so...
Yeah, well, that's coming from a guy that here we are 12 months after the pandemic has begun. There's been zero ability to increase hospital capacity, and there's been no push yet to bring even improve the filtration and air units at provincial schools. I mean, we've been doing this to buy time. What have we been doing while we bought the time? That's my big question.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to some other things before we stop at the halfway point. The Chateau Laurier. I still think the addition is ugly. I know they're going to use limestone. To me, it's just an abomination. But it's over. It's done. It's been approved by the City Council. What do you think of this saga, Fred, now that it has come to its dreadful conclusion?
I mean, when you see the end result, you think, what a waste of time. Some people who are on the fence on it, imagine if you tore down the West Block and put something like that up to replace the West Block. I think it matches the artistic beauty of the U.S. Embassy perfectly.
Yeah. But did City Council really do its job here, do you think, Fred?
In terms of taking time to debate it, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, the end result is the end result, right? And we move on.
Yeah.
But I would side with you. I don't think it's the most beautiful edifice in the world.
Right. Okay. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think if debating it longer could make it better, that would be great. But I don't think that's going to make the thing happen. The challenge with heritage, properties, and you could go deep on this, is there's all kinds of rules about, you can't make them look like, you can't try to pass them off as, as a period piece kind of thing. You have to make them look distinct and different. And of course, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I too happen to think that the addition is not the most pleasant thing in the world to look at. But that said, listen, 30 years from now, they'll come forward and say, well, we want to do some modifications, and there will be pickets and marches to defend, what everybody doesn't seem to like today, right? That's the way it happens.
Do you think? It was, it was the city that had to make this decision ultimately. I just wonder if it really should have been the city's decision at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ottawa...
it's such an iconic place, right? So
there is a challenge in Ottawa where we do have this kind of really rough separation between what we consider downtown in kind of that capital and parliamentary precinct area to be city responsibility versus, when should it be, the feds that weigh in and say, oh no, this is within sight of Parliament, this is kind of in the general governance district, we should have more of a say or a voice in this. Then of course they have the opportunity to not be bound by, provincial heritage guidelines, that type of thing, in municipal ordinances. I also think it's always a challenge when governments are trying to debate and constrain anything that's being paid for by the private sector, right? I mean, if you're paying the bill, build it however you want to build it.
Yeah, well, but it doesn't usually go that way, right?
No, yeah,
right?
Well,
if it was that easy, we would have developed LeBreton Flats a long time ago. But
this is an example of it going the other way, Rob.
Yeah, going the other way. What about that, Fred? I mean, do you really think that this should have been City Council's decision in the end? I mean, I guess after it's all said and done and this thing is going to go ahead, I do wonder, where was the federal government? Where was the National Capital Commission? Where was the Heritage Department in all of this?
Well, my understanding is the NCC is still supposed to review it themselves as well. But that's a very good question. I mean, you would think the NCC would have some sort of say in it. which is a bit confusing. I don't know what the full story is on that, but it is a bit confusing. Maybe they just wanted to sit back and let the city take care of it. I don't know. Right, I'm not behind the closed doors.
Okay. All right, we'll be right back. We're talking some city issues. We have Mark Taylor, used to be the city councillor for Bay Ward. He's with the United Way now. And Fred Sherwin is the publisher with the Orléans Star. And we're back in a moment on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work. It's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
Find your frequency.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're talking some city issues. We do that every Thursday morning with interested observers. This week, Fred Sherwin, publisher of the Orléans Star, and Mark Taylor is a former city councillor for Bay Ward, now with the United Way, Eastern Ontario. How are things at the United Way these days? Mark, should ask you.
Listen, Rob, we're continuing to fire on all cylinders and supporting the community as best we can. We are incredibly blessed to have lots of people out there supporting us, not just obviously, folks who are supporting us financially, but just a terrific set of community partners, all across East Ontario. I mean, there are so many agencies and organizations working on the ground to help vulnerable residents that, we're getting the job done. One of the things that we always remind people to do is, think about ways in which they can support, not just, again, financially donating, but, go to our website, unitedwayeo.ca, and there's opportunities there to learn more about the work we're doing, engage in it, use your voice or your pocketbook to help support the work we're doing. But we're getting by.
Getting by, okay. Would you say you've seen an appreciable increase in demand for services from the United Way agencies?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, right from the start of the pandemic, the kind of the explosion in need through both the vulnerable community and our community of residents who previous to that really never thought of themselves as being in a vulnerable group has just exploded, right? So places like, mental health have really, ticked up, not just in terms of the early part of the pandemic crisis, but even now as folks like you and me, maybe living with, isolation or perhaps some social exclusion kind of thing, those things are starting to set in. So mental health is a challenge. Basic needs, is another area where we've been really active trying to support things like ensuring that isolated seniors get connectivity and get meals, those types of things. So, yes, it's great that generosity and people's engagement with charity has been up, but the need is way up.
Yeah.
Okay. An ongoing battle.
Fred, in your role as publisher of the Orléans Star, just generally speaking, how would you say Orleans is doing right now? I think of Orleans as kind of like just sleepy, stable, affluent Orleans. Give me a sense of that, Fred.
I mean, things are going well. The problem with this is what you don't know is what's lying under the surface, right?
Right.
I know for a fact there's a lot of businesses that are sort of hanging on by their fingertips, and the question is how long can they continue to do that, right? How long can they continue to put off paying rent? How long can they, like the service sector? How many people are waiting for their job to start up again? And you just don't know. I mean, in terms of cases, I think in the last 2 weeks we've had 90 new cases here in Orleans. That's up slightly from the 2 week period before that. So case-wise, we seem to be doing okay. But this is all going to come down to, I think the biggest issue we face in this country is when we're going to be ill up and when we're going to get vaccinated, because or the other way around. Because that ties in with our whole economy.
Oh, sure. The path to immunity is the path to normalcy, right?
It's also the path to get back to an economic footing, because those countries who are going to be vaccinated ahead of us are going to be in a lot better shape economically than the rest of us catching up. I can thank goodness two of our closest partners, the UK and the United States, are probably going to be vaccinated before us, and then we can get all the leftovers. But there's no question it's a travesty that we're this far behind, and this is going to be having far-reaching consequences for this country, both from a health perspective and economically.
Well, the CFIB is out with a number this morning that says small business is $135 billion in the hole right now.
Yeah, and we don't know. There was, everyone predicted dire consequences, that a lot of restaurants, et cetera, would be going out of business. Now, fortunately, we haven't seen that yet. But how long is that going to hold on? And referring to the United Way, and this is reality we face up to today, but things could turn a whole lot worse very quickly, and we just don't know.
Yeah, one of the other things, too, that we have to, keep our eye on, and, we're all longing for this return to normalcy. One of the things that the pandemic has done is for many people, it's pulled back the curtain, and they see now that there were a lot of systemic underlying problems that our community had that perhaps weren't really as prevalently known before. Even look at things like, these cases where we've had COVID surges in long-term care homes, several months ago, and some of the early investigations into it. Turns out that it was, some of the care workers who were bringing it in, because some of the care workers were living in
shelter,
in shelters, right? And that's something that's been going on for years. But it quickly became apparent to people that a lot of the frontline heroes that we count on in society are they themselves vulnerable people, right? So,
and Rob, we're also a community of have and have nots, especially here in the East End. There's a lot of people who have guaranteed jobs, who are getting guaranteed paychecks, whether they be federal civil servants or people connected with government agencies who are getting paid throughout this. And when we say we're all in this together, we're not all in this together equally.
No.
You cannot compare a family. You cannot compare, two spouses, both of whom work for the federal government, with a restaurant owner whose entire family is working on that restaurant, and the entire livelihood and their futures depend on that restaurant staying in business.
Sure. Or somebody who, a woman who came here from the Caribbean 2 years ago and works as a care worker, as a personal support worker, right? And is making, maybe $15-20 an hour, and has to, work at had to work at 3 different homes just to cobble together a 40-hour work week. Yeah,
but I think what I'm trying to say is a lot of people don't realize that restaurant owner who's in his late 50s or early 60s, if that restaurant goes out of business, he's not about to get retrained to go in another line of work. His entire future is destroyed.
Yeah. Well, and it's important, Fred, to ensure that as we have that economic recovery, we want to make sure it's an inclusive economic recovery too, right?
Sure, yeah. So let me ask you, it seems kind of obvious, I guess, what the answer is, but there is this idea, and it's gotten the green light from the city, letting patios stay open until 2:00 in the morning, restaurant patios. What do you think, Fred? No-brainer?
Well, the no-brainer, we don't know, because we don't know the number of cases back then, and I think of all the things reopening, having restaurants open past 10 o'clock will come quicker than having patios open till 2:00 in the morning.
Okay.
It would be a nice to have thing, but let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see. Okay. Mark, what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, listen, I think every decision has to be always caveated by saying, provided that the public health protocols that need to be observed at that particular point in time, wherever we are in the case numbers, is done. But on spec, I don't have any problem with patios being open till 2 in the morning.
Okay. Winter parking tickets, almost 18,000 parking tickets for on-street winter parking. Cash grab? Do I smell a cash grab here? What do you think, Fred? What do you think?
Somebody has to pay for those empty buses. I used to live downtown. And I didn't have my own parking space, so I used to have to bum parking on snow days with my neighbors. On one hand, it's a cash grab, but on the other thing, it is the law. But surely by now, you should know in Ottawa that if you have a heavy snow event, you shouldn't be
get the car off the road. Yeah, right. Yeah. And some of the side streets are by February, March, pretty narrow. Hard for the snowplow to get down if there's even one car on the road. So
try driving a school bus down some of those streets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mark, what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I don't think it's a cash grab, but as Fred said, there are very valid reasons why the parking ban's in effect. I do think, I think it was Kelly Egan wrote a piece this week, where he talks about he teased out a few folks who, seemed kind of egregious, the tickets that they got. But, I think, listen, with a little bit of planning, folks can, do their best to try and plan around the street needs to be cleaned, I need to clean my driveway, and I don't want to get a ticket. The one thing I could encourage, from a city perspective would be look at those opportunities to provide short-term parking on the street so that, if folks need to get home, they've got that wall of ice in front of their driveway. They can park somewhere within, 10 miles of home so that they can clear their driveway and then get into the driveway.
Okay. Thank you for the time this morning. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Yep. Talk
nice
soon.
Chat, Fred.
Yeah. Fred Sherwin from the Orléans Star, and Mark Taylor, former city councillor, now with the United Way. I'm Rob Snow. That's hour number 1. Hour number 2 belongs to you. Talk Back Hour here on City News.
IWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -5 degrees. And here's what's making news right now. After announcing the city could soon be headed to red on the provincial framework, Ottawa's top doctor explaining how the extended restrictions affect someone's mental health. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches tells the Rob Snow Show the prolonged restrictions and guidelines implemented to slow the spread of COVID-19 is impacting residents' mental health.
Psychologically, it's just hard to stay in a high level of vigilance.
The doctor adds when there's an announcement over and over of restrictions being eased and more opening up, it triggers relaxing among residents. She says this leads to people getting together with more contacts, which she feels happened in Ottawa right as news of schools reopening came. Dr. Etches does feel everyone is working hard when it comes to wearing masks, but the risk of transmission comes when people take a break and get close to someone else. Alex Gouge, City News.
Now the full interview with Dr. Etches coming up just after 11 o'clock on the Rob Snow Show. City News time, 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It'll be cleanup day today after yesterday's snowfall. We've already reached our high for the day. It was near the freezing mark in many areas early this morning. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about -5, feeling like -10 with the wind. Chance of flurries tonight, a low near -18. And for tomorrow, sun and cloud near 0. For today, already reached the high, 0.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's -5 degrees. The cleanup Jill mentioned means there is a parking ban on city streets. That's at least until 7 o'clock tonight. Students and parents at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board have the option to opt out of in-person learning, but they must make that decision by the middle of March. Associate Director Brett Reynolds says the decision will need to be finalized by mid-March so the board can have enrollment and staffing decisions made by the end of this school year.
Where we are now is that if we have any sort of delay to this plan, it would essentially, from what I understand, we've looked at this very carefully, be impossible to conclude this process by the 25th of June.
Now, he says safety does come first. The board is planning for the worst just in case COVID measures are still in place in September. University of Ottawa has laid out its plan for the start of fall semester. The plan as it stands is to provide an enriching on-campus experience in September. University plans to have an increased number of in-person or hybrid courses available. The school says while the future remains uncertain due to COVID measures, it's doing its best to maximize in-person activities on campus. All decisions made will be in line, though, with public health guidelines. Federal government is seeking a fourth extension to the court-imposed deadline for expanding access to medical assistance in dying. There have been months of controversy over the legislation aimed at bringing the law into compliance with a 2019 Quebec Superior Court ruling. The new poll, however, suggests that broad support among Canadians for removing the provision that would allow assisted dying only for people whose natural deaths are reasonably foreseeable. The bill has been strenuously opposed by some disability rights groups. And a new estimate is just in today suggesting a move to a hybrid parliament could actually save as much as $6.2 million a year. The system, which sees MPs and senators taking part in person, but most others logged on remotely, has been in place since April due to the COVID pandemic. While the nuances of how MPs and senators participate have changed since then, the Parliamentary Budget Office report suggests the primary driver of the saving is reduced travel. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
And we're going to do a rapid poll. I want to take as many calls as I can between now and the top of the hour, okay? Between now and 11 o'clock, David's standing by. I want to hear from you. I don't want to do all the talking this hour, okay? I do have the gift of gab. I can talk for the entire hour, but I'd much rather hear from you. You call, have your opinion, and then we'll just move along to the next caller, and we're going to keep track. And it's about vaccines, okay? The number, you just heard, 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You can also email me, therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. We are 11 and a half months into the pandemic. Okay? Almost 1 year, but not quite 1 year. And Canadians are getting vaccinated. Now, Canadians are getting vaccinated not as fast as Americans are getting vaccinated, or the Brits are getting vaccinated, or the Indonesians or the Bangladeshis, but Canadians are getting vaccinated. The Trudeau government has procured the vaccine, a program that has had its problems, and we've talked at great length about that. And now the Ford government is explaining how it plans to distribute the vaccine. What I want to know from you, I want your honest opinion. It's the 25th day of February, 2021. We are 11.5 months exactly into this pandemic. 2 weeks from today, it will be 1 year since the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. My question is, the vaccine program is about where you thought it would be? Behind where you thought it would be? We're lagging behind where you thought it would be? Or right on schedule? Right about on track where you thought we would be? What is your opinion? And we're going to keep track of your answers. Okay? 750-1310, 750-1310, 750-1310. It's been a while since we've done a talkback hour. It's been a while since we've done a rapid poll during the talkback hour. Vaccine rollout, timeline released yesterday by the Ford government. That's one part of it, right? This is our plan for distribution. We're going by age. And then there's the supply of vaccine, and that's all the promises from the Trudeau government. This many million by this month, and this many million by this month, and this many million later this year. So again, the rapid poll question, grab a line. We have a couple of lines available there. My question is the time frame of this vaccination program that you're hearing. Is it about where you thought it would be? Is it ahead of where you thought it would be? Or is it behind where you thought it would be? What's your answer? We're going to keep score. We're keeping track of your answers. Take as many calls as we can between now and the end of the hour. I'm going to try and shut up and listen, okay? You know that's never my strong suit, people, but I'm going to try my best, and we'll see how things look. I want to know if there's a prevailing opinion. Okay? What's your choice? You know, like door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. Are we, ahead of schedule? Are we behind schedule? Are we on schedule? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310, and we're off. Alistair. Good morning, Alistair.
Good morning, Rob Snow, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to give us a call today. What do you think, Alistair? You know, you think back to where we were in March of last year, pandemic declared, and here we are. It's the third week of February. Well, for the last few days of February now, I guess. Do you think we're ahead of where we should be on vaccines, behind where we should be on vaccines, or just about right?
Well, I check world and data every day, almost for the last 6 months. I have a mother who's 81 years old, who desperate to get the vaccine. And from what I see in world and data, there's 57 countries ahead of us,
right,
as of yesterday.
Yeah.
So call us last, you know.
Right.
We can't get much worse, so we're way behind.
We're way behind. Okay. All right. We should be doing better, in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, aside from, I think I sent you an email the other day from we should be manufacturing here. We could have done it in the Hoffman LaRoche plant in Vaudreuil, but no one even looks at places like that. We're sitting empty right now.
What plant is that, sir? Can you say that again?
Yeah, that's the Hoffman LaRoche plant in Vaudreuil.
In Vaudreuil. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It was closed down years ago because of the patent laws were changed in Quebec. I don't know if you remember that. But,
okay, I'm not really familiar with that.
3 million square feet. It's free. There's freezers in it. There's everything. There's laboratories. It's massive.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And Vaudreuil, remind me where that is.
Just if you're heading towards Montreal, you just get over the border. It's basically there.
Oh, right there. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. But way behind, in your opinion.
You can see it from the 417.
But you're saying when it comes to vaccines, we should do them better, and you think we're way behind.
Well, that's the understatement of the year.
Understatement of the year. Okay. All right. Alistair, I'm glad that you listen all the time. It warms my heart to hear that, and I'm glad you finally picked up the phone. Don't be shy and do it again sometime.
Have a great day,
Yeah,
sir.
you too. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, 750-1310. We're doing a rapid poll. Way behind, leading the way. 750-1310. Let's keep it going here. David in the West End. David.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, sir. Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Well, we're behind because there's two governments or three or four governments involved.
Yeah.
And the information we're getting, like last night on the news, they said they're going to start on March 15.
March 15th, there's going to be an online booking system.
Yeah, so they're going to start. Why can't they book now and be ready for March 15?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
You know, because, like, the wife's 96.
Yes.
And I have no idea, and her sister...
She's 96, right? Yes. And you've been open about this before. She has dementia, I believe, right?
Yes, she does.
Yes, yeah. Lives with you. Right?
Yeah,
not in a home, right? She's not in a home. She's in your home.
She will be in a home.
Okay. Has she had even one dose yet?
No.
Not even one dose. And you're...
I'm 87.
87, and you haven't had a dose
No,
yet.
I married my babysitter.
You devil, you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where do I go? Where do I get the phone number? And you know what? When that phone number comes out, the line's going to be busy.
Oh, yes,
busy.
yes, yeah.
So, you know, they should have started with people over 85 and sort of narrow it down a little more, which will be less confusion, really.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Can you imagine what it's going to be like on that website on the 15th of March when that thing opens up?
Well, we gave our computer away to our granddaughter, so we don't have a computer anymore.
Right, okay.
It was just a lot of trouble.
Well, yeah.
So
okay.
where do we go, Rob? Like, are we going to sit and wait for CJOH News at 6 o'clock to give us a phone number on that day?
Well, you know, we'll work on getting you that information. But that information should be public already, shouldn't it? So
it should be, yes, they should be.
Yeah.
They should be listing and organizing right now for the 15th, and get all the people that are, like, you know, in their 90s, 85, 80s, and so on.
Right.
And be prepared 100%.
Now, David, so you think, and all great points that you make, Dave. Are we behind, do you think, when you think, you know, kind of where we were? It hasn't been a year, right? And people used to say, oh, it's going to take years to have a vaccine. Well, it took less than a year, right, in the end. So are we really behind, or are we about on time, or what do you think here?
Insofar as manufacturing, the manufacturing people did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
My goodness, that they cut it 3 years off what could have happened.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is behind.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one question about.
Okay.
These red zones that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Where are they? And we should have more information about the people with the virus.
What do you mean?
Well, where is the red zone? I don't want to go to a red zone.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if the red zone is between Bank and Laurier, I'll stay away.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
We don't have enough information.
You want more information. You think there should be more information. I got you, David. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I got to run. Okay. So there's two calls, both of them saying, well, we could be doing better. I think we're behind. We're doing a rapid poll on the vaccination program so far. We have promises on the vaccine supply from the Trudeau government, 6 million by the end of March, more than 20 million by the end of June, and I think it's more than 50 million doses by the end of September. Okay, that's on the supply. And yesterday, it was the timeline, okay? Third week of March, over 80. Middle of April, over 75. 1st of May, over 70. June 1st, 65 and over. July 1st, 60 and over. Those are the promises being made by both levels of government. 11 and a half months into pandemic life. Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, or just about right on schedule? In your opinion, rapid poll, talkback hour, City News.
The location is unique. There's, as you can see, it's open, and we have large windows. You can sit down and you can look outside. And this scene is not many scenes like that in Ottawa anymore, with the high buildings. And we have the train station to the west of us. We have the train yards to the south. We have Saint Laurent Shopping Center, not far from here. And OC Transpo, not far from here. And the train, the light train, again, is not far from here. You can find breakfast. The breakfast, it was 7 or 8 years ago, it was one of the best five restaurants in Ottawa. One of the five best breakfasts in Ottawa. 7 or 8 years ago, it was in the Citizen. And our club sandwich is voted by customers the best in town. And the pea soup, too, is voted the best in town. We sell, we make pizza, we make Italian food, Lebanese dishes. Many customers describe it as it has the prices of the 60s, very reasonable prices. And the food, many say the best in town, not me. Many customers say that. It was a shock. It was a shock. And we went from doing well to barely doing very little. We relied heavily on the takeout, and the takeout was not that much. There was some. I hear from many customers that they are willing to come and sit inside. They're not afraid of the spread, as long as we wash our hands, sanitize everything, and wear your mask and keep the distancing. Most or all our customers are okay with that. So they are against the lockdown, They are supporting us a lot. And if it wasn't for the community loyalty, we wouldn't be here today. So I have to thank them for their support so far. It's been great.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
And I know General Hillier is spending every waking moment, and he's doing a great job, by the way, planning for the future. That's what generals do. They just, he looks at the task at hand, but good generals, good commanders, they look at what's going down the road, where are we going to be in March, April, May, so on and so forth, and planning for the future for when we have more vaccines. So I appreciate the work that General Hillier is doing, and folks, until then, we'll continue doing what's needed most.
That was the Premier yesterday after the briefing from retired General Rick Hillier. He'll be on our program tomorrow morning. Are we doing that live, or are we going to talk to him in the morning and then play it later? We're going to tape it. Okay, all right. Have you figured out when we're going to play it?
We'll play that at 9:45 after you talk to the airport.
Around 9:45. Yeah. Okay, all right. Again, just to review what he said yesterday, that booking portal online, March 15th, that's open, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to book an appointment on March 15th. That's just the date that the portal will actually be online. Media reports say it could be months before you'll be able to book an appointment. Then, third week of March, people over the age of 80. April 15th, 75 years and older. May 1st, 70 and over. June 1st, 65 years and older. July 1st, vaccinations begin for people 60 and over. And that's it. That's what we had yesterday. Then on the supply from the Trudeau government, okay, just to remind you what we are expecting. Anita Anand, the procurement minister, said just this week The timeline for supply is, by the end of March, 6 million doses of Pfizer and Moderna vaccine doses. Second quarter, so up until the end of June, 23 million doses of those vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. And then the third quarter, which takes you to the end of September, expected deliveries of those two vaccines, 55 million doses. You do the quick math, that's 84 million doses in all of Pfizer and Moderna. And, of course, under ideal conditions, everyone's supposed to get 2 doses. So that would cover the Canadian population, okay? It's enough for 42 million people. The population is 38 million. But very backloaded, right? The most doses don't arrive until late summer, early fall. But more vaccine doses on the way. The timeline announced yesterday by General Rick Hillier. Are we ahead of where you thought we'd be by now? Are we behind where you thought we'd be by now? Or are we just about right on time? What do you think? That's the question. Des Karp, what do you think, Des?
Excuse me. Well, I'll tell you, it's I don't know. I just can't believe from the Liberals when it's going to be. So it's very hard to pinpoint when half of this stuff is coming anyway. If I stop shaving today, it'll be down to my knees by the time that we get this. Okay. I'm not blaming the Ford government for this either.
Okay, all right.
No, we are so far behind, all because of the Liberals. Instead of going to China, we'd have had this a long time ago. So that's where my gripe is about.
All right. Well said, Des. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Always great to hear from you. 750-1310. We're doing a rapid poll this morning. You call 750-1310. I take your vote. Ahead, behind, just about right. And we'll move along to the next caller. Leeds, Grenville, Jen. Good morning, Jen.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Good morning. I think we're behind.
You think you're behind? Okay. All right.
Yep,
and why do you say that, Jen?
Well, I'm a community PSW.
Okay.
So I'm on the road. My clients, much like I think a caller about 2 or 3 callers before, not knowing when he's going to get his vaccine. Most of my clients are over the age of 70.
Right.
And they have the same question. Putting an online portal.
Yeah.
Most of these people don't have the internet.
Well, over the age of 70 is supposed to be May 1st, starting May 1st.
Yes.
Supposed to be.
Exactly.
Right.
So is essential workers.
Yes, in the second
May.
Yes, in the second phase. Right.
Yep.
Healthcare workers, other essential caregivers, but the government actually has yet to determine who is going to be an essential worker. For example, me and David, under the business openings and reopenings, actually, David and I, we're considered to be essential because we're in the news media. But I guarantee you when it comes to vaccines, we're not going to be essential workers. You're much more essential than we are, Jen. So
even my husband, he works in the lumberyard. He's essential.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So how is that? I'm dealing with the public who... I mean, these people are very vulnerable, and we've been dealing with this for, like you said, 11 and a half months, which I didn't realize it's been that long.
Yeah. I mean, that's just since the official declaration of the pandemic. It's been 11 months and 14 days. When you think about it, the first cases of this virus started appearing around Christmas, actually, Christmas before last Christmas. So it's been, more than a year, really, but... They declared the pandemic on the 11th of March. So 2 weeks from today, it will be 1 year.
It'll be 1 year.
Yeah.
It's jumping.
Pretty crazy, eh? What a year.
Hang it out.
Yeah. Okay, Jen. All right. You see, but we're behind, in your opinion. We're behind.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you.
We're leaving the vulnerable. Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Gabby. Good morning, Gabby.
Good morning.
Hi, Gabby. Great to hear from you. Do you think we're ahead of where you thought we'd be by now on vaccines, behind where you thought we'd be? Or
I think we are extremely behind. I'm a healthcare worker. I'm a PSW that does home care.
Okay.
And first of all, I don't even understand the system, what they have set up, first of all, because in long-term care facilities, the people that need to be vaccinated are the people bringing in the stuff, right? Not the people that sit there and don't leave. We're the ones bringing everything to them, and everything that they're doing, I find, is just they're like picking things out of hats. I find.
So you think the PSWs and the people working in the homes should be getting vaccinated a lot faster? Yeah.
Because I feel like it's us that's dragging it in. If someone doesn't leave their house or leave their home ever,
Right.
what exactly is going to... It's us that's bringing it in.
I see. Okay.
So I find that we're very behind, completely behind, this is ridiculous. It's almost been a year and we're not getting ahead at all. Healthcare workers are being completely underneath, and it's just horrible.
Okay. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you for your call. Okay. Well, it's 750-1310, 750-1310. That's an interesting point that she raises. Another personal support worker. Anne, good morning, Anne. You're on the air.
Hi. I have to confess I was a little bit hard on the Ford government yesterday.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the fact that as you know, I think we're woefully, pitifully behind compared to the world. It's just ridiculous. And I find there's a lot of spinning going on to take the heat off of Trudeau. Oh, look at Ford. He's not keeping up.
Right.
I mean, and all this dog-eat-dog stuff, I want to be first. I want to be first. There wouldn't be that problem if we had capacity, if we had the amount of vaccines that the other countries are getting.
Well, again, I come back to these two numbers. In the United States, they vaccinated 1.3 million people yesterday. We did 44,000.
That's ridiculous. The world is laughing at Canada right now, and that is on Trudeau.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Time for one more, maybe even two more if we go quick. 750-1310. When you hear a free line, that's your cue to call Margot.
Hi, just a quick one. So I was caught I got the first dose with the first wave of vaccines.
Yeah.
So I've been done. I've had both vaccines.
You've had both vaccines. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You are very special, Margot.
I'm in long-term care.
Good for you.
And also now, the next person that's involved with me that's in long-term care, now the next phase has come up with these vaccines. So I want people not to stress, because you know what? Each time you get notified that you are going to be on the list, and you do your form and you fill it out, and within a week and a half, you will finally hear from somebody and set it up.
Okay.
People are too impatient. They're panicking. And
Too impatient. Okay, so I want you to answer my poll question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule, about on schedule? What do you think?
Well, I think all things considered, I'm very surprised that we even have the vaccine by now.
Okay.
And I think it's terrible the way we keep comparing to other countries. We have a lot of variables.
Why?
Well, because we have a lot of space. It's very easy to vaccinate an area where everybody's living in high density and intensity, and we are not.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well,
the United States is geographically a very big country, Margot, and they managed to vaccinate 1.3 million people yesterday.
And they have 4 or 5 times the population. I think what is happening is, because of our geographies, they're doing Ottawa and Toronto area in Ottawa, where they can get the main people.
All right. So you think we're actually doing better than you expected?
Well, I think we're doing better that we got the vaccine. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But I'm just so tired of everybody complaining and whining.
Tired of people complaining. Easy to say when you've had 2 doses of vaccine, I guess, Margot. Okay. Got to run. News is coming up. It's halftime. Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. It feels like -14. In Smiths Falls, -5. And feels like -11. Here's what's making news this hour. About 5,000 people and businesses through Tanglewood, Centrepoint, and City View going through a power outage. Hydro Ottawa says it hopes to have all the power restored by about 12:30 this afternoon. Infection numbers continue to be on the steady upward path today. Latest numbers from the province show 1,158 more cases of COVID-19 today. 64 of these new cases are in Ottawa. No new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. 20 are in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. There are 4 in Renfrew. There were 66,400 tests completed for these numbers. In the hotspots, 339 new cases in Toronto, 204 in Peel. There have also been 24 more deaths province-wide. Ottawa's Chief Medical Officer of Health says indications are COVID rates are increasing. More proof of that today in the city. And we're approaching the red zone of restriction numbers once again. Dr. Vera Etches says people react to the lifting of measures by relaxing and starting to do things like socializing. She warns if we continue doing things like that, we will be under more restrictions again. A full interview with the doctor coming up just after 11 on the Rob Snow Show. Canadian Armed Forces reeling this morning with news the Chief of Defence Staff, Admiral Art MacDonald, being investigated for misconduct. The Defence Minister, Harjit Sajjan, revealed late last night MacDonald has voluntarily stepped aside while the military police investigate. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
We're going to get back to the phone calls and finish our rapid poll. The question period is getting underway momentarily in the Ontario legislature.
To help in the fight against COVID-19.
Member for London West is seeking the unanimous consent of the House to move a motion regarding the accelerated passage of Bill 239, the Stay at Home If You Are Sick Act, to help in the fight against COVID-19. Agreed? Agreed. I heard a no.
The day after the vaccination
it is now
plan.
Time for oral questions, and I recognize the Speaker of Her Majesty's loyal opposition.
Premier's taking a lot of heat. This is Andrea Horvath.
My first question today is for the Premier. Speaker, when families were losing their loved ones to COVID-19 in long-term care, the Premier promised that they would get the answers that they deserve through a commission that the government established. That commission heard from Dr. Williams on Monday, and 2 days before his appearance, the commission received 217,000 documents and 2,000 pages of handwritten notes from Dr. Williams. 2 days before his testimony. The notes were heavily redacted, and Dr. Williams' testimony was interfered with constantly by his lawyers, who were trying to, I guess, protect Dr. Williams from providing the information that people deserve. So if the government and the Premier really wanted to get the answers for Ontarians, if they really respected them, why does this look like a stinking cover-up?
I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition to withdraw.
Withdraw, Speaker.
Order. Order. The question has been placed. Minister of Health to reply.
Thank you, Speaker. In fact, I would say to Leader Opposition quite the opposite. We set up and allowed the Commission to operate because I know that there are many families that have inquiries. They were wondering what happened during the course of the COVID situation thus far, and they want the answers, and we want them to have the answers. This is a truly independent commission that is doing its work. Dr. Williams did appear before the Commission. However, there were some concerns with respect to some of the entries in some of his documents related to cabinet decisions. That it was the impression of council that they needed to be protected and not released. However, the matter did go before a mediation. It was determined that all of Dr. Williams' documents should be submitted, and they were.
Okay, so that is a little bit of the question period in the Ontario legislature today. We're doing a rapid poll. This is the Talkback Hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News. And at halftime, I have it 6-1. So far, most of the callers clearly think we're behind schedule when it comes to the vaccination rollout in this country. David and I disagreed about Margot and whether she thought we were actually on track with the vaccine, on schedule or actually ahead of schedule. I thought the impression she left me was she thought we were doing better than expected. Maybe that's because she has had 2 doses of vaccine, right?
That's true.
The vast majority of people have not even had one yet. Anyway, in Ontario, it's going to take another 24 days, give or take, until we even start vaccinating people over the age of 80. So by that time, it will have been more than a year since the beginning of the pandemic, since it was declared by the World Health Organization. And in Canada, in Ontario, if you're over the age of 60, you won't get a shot until July 1st. After July 1st, that's what the Trudeau government is saying. That's what the Ford government is saying. So what do you think about this schedule that's being outlined by the government? Trudeau government, Ford government. Is it ahead of schedule, behind schedule, or about as expected? That's our rapid poll question for this hour, Talkback Hour, 750-1310. Back to the phone calls. Anne in Canada.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Anne.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
First-time caller.
Well, I appreciate that. That makes me feel even better.
Nervous.
No, that's okay.
At first, I was angry at General Hillier when he first gave the dates for the hotline or for the phone number and for the website.
Yes.
Then I heard him talking about it later, and I understand that if he does it too soon and we don't get the vaccines, there has to be all kinds of cancellations.
Okay.
Which creates another issue where they have to reschedule people and people have to rebook and so I gave him a pass on that.
Okay.
For now.
You've had some time to kind of cool off, right? Okay.
But, when you see what's happening in the rest of the world, I think we're well behind.
You're well behind. Okay. Yeah.
So,
okay.
And all the dates that are being, put out right now depends on vaccine deliveries.
It does. Now, again, Mr. Trudeau says 6 million doses of those 2 vaccines that have been approved, 6 million doses by the end of March.
Yeah.
And then 23 million by the end of June, and then another 55 million by the end of September. So, yeah.
Well,
he says.
We'll see.
He says.
We'll see.
Right. Okay. Anything could happen, I guess. Right.
That's right.
We could use a lucky bounce, I think.
We sure could.
Right?
We sure could.
Okay, Anne. I thank you for your call. Thank you for calling today and registering your vote. Charlotte Lake, Kevin. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. Thank you for calling, sir. Do you think we're on schedule, ahead of schedule, behind schedule when it comes to these vaccines?
I'd say we're too far ahead of schedule for these vaccines.
We're ahead of schedule.
I'd say the manufacturing companies can't keep up with demand. They should have held some back so you could actually vaccinate enough of a population at once. Right now, it's all just we're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. We don't find a date in the future where everyone could possibly get it who wants it.
Okay.
And then the skepticism of it because it came so quick. I think a lot of people, don't want to get it because of that or want to wait.
Right.
So I think we're too far ahead on the vaccine that it's taken us longer.
We're ahead, so we're falling behind?
You got it.
Okay. All right. Okay, Kevin.
It takes years to build these vaccines.
Usually, but
we don't have a product there to even give to people.
Yeah.
If you can't do enough of a population, it's kind of pointless. Now, if you need multiple shots, does that first shot wear off? And then it was all for nothing? So I just, the professionals don't seem to know much about the virus, period. how do we even get to this point of vaccines so quickly? So there's skepticism as well.
There is. Yeah, sure. When it comes to vaccines, there's always going to be skepticism. And you're right, it can take years to develop a vaccine. Sometimes they try for decades and never develop a vaccine. Right?
But countries buying more than they need.
Well, Canada's been accused of doing that.
Yeah, well, we're pretty big with our foreign aid, so I'm sure most of them will end up going to foreign countries before.
Well, actually, truth be told, Kevin, we're raiding the pool of vaccines for foreign aid. But I don't know what to put you down as. Maybe Kevin is abstain. That's a very popular word this week. Anyway. 750-1310, 750-1310. Okay. Again, lots of doses on the way, according to Trudeau, and the timeline released yesterday by Premier Ford and retired General Rick Hillier. Are we behind schedule? Are we ahead of schedule? Are we about on schedule when it comes to our vaccine program? For Ontario, for Canada, Erica in Hammond. Erica, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I'm a first-time caller.
You are?
Yes, I am. A little bit nervous.
That's 3 today. My goodness. That's okay. Are we ahead of schedule, behind schedule? What do you think? About on schedule? What do you think?
Well, looking at the other news programs I've seen, it seems that we're behind schedule on vaccination.
Yeah.
But what I'm questioning is provincially, our OHIP, Ontario Health Program.
Okay.
It's a computerized system. And so why are they not accessing the computerized system? They have everyone's name, age, everyone's health issues.
Yeah.
And they can prioritize from the computer who needs to get the vaccines first. And then from the computer, they should be notifying the population.
Well, see, this is, this, if I could just interrupt there.
And that would eliminate all the phone call business from the general public trying to get a line and get in.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess this is one of the questions that I have, just generally speaking, when it comes to the vaccination program. And it's a debate that's happening, and it's something that I asked Dr. Vera Etches in our conversation that's coming up after the 11 o'clock news. There's some debate about whether we're being too focused on age. Okay? For example, say 60 years old, vaccinations are supposed to begin for 60 years and over on July 1st. Okay? Well, what if let's say you're 60.
Yes.
You're in perfect health. You don't smoke. Maybe you go for a run every day or a walk, whatever, but generally in good health for 60. But what about, say, somebody who's 59 and maybe has, who knows, heart disease or diabetes or has a pacemaker or something like that, right? What about that 58-year-old?
That's why I think they should be using the OHIP centralized computerized system. All of our health factors are listed on the computer system, and they could prioritize who needs it now and who can, like there are healthy 90-year-olds walking around. That's your point. But there are very sick 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds and even 20-year-olds who need to be vaccinated now rather than later.
Well, I ask Dr. Etches that very question this morning, and you'll have to wait until after the 11 o'clock news. Erica,
I'll be
to hear the
waiting
answer.
to hear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your call.
Thanks.
We're going to stop here, take a quick break, and then come back, finish our rapid poll, and then Dr. Etches, my conversation with Dr. Etches after the 11 o'clock news. Here on City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Doug Ford says we're not behind. Stop saying we're behind. We're not behind. It's kind of like when Prime Minister Trudeau said, we're on track. We're on track. This was Doug Ford yesterday.
Oh, I'm going to respectfully disagree. We're far behind. We're leading the whole country. We're doing more than Alberta, BC. You combine all the vaccinations in the entire country. Ontario's doing more, so I don't know how we're falling behind on that. But in saying that, let's look at Alberta. Let's take Alberta, then I'll move over to Quebec. And they're both great provinces, both great premiers there. They put up their website and bang, it's crashed. We want to make sure we nail this. We have it down pat. So their website crashed, and then we look at Quebec. They're a great province, great premier. They haven't administered 1 single dose of the second vaccine, the second dose.
So that was Premier Ford yesterday, asking today, just generally speaking, when it comes to the vaccine program in this country, in this province, in the city. It's been 11 months and 14 days of pandemic life, ladies and gentlemen. 11 and a half months. 2 weeks from today, it will have been 1 year since the declaration of the pandemic. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we right on schedule, in your opinion? With the vaccine rollout, what do you think? To Hawkesbury, Karen. Good morning, Karen.
Hi, Rob.
Hi. What do you think, Karen?
I think slow behind. And I think it's badly organized, and I think it's confusing.
Okay.
And I think that if we don't get the PSWs and the workers that are working with COVID people vaccinated, it's insane. They have to come first. I'm 71. I don't mind waiting. I'll wait as long as they're done. Tell you one thing I wonder about, though, Rob, and probably everybody knows the answer to this but me. But didn't we talk about the armed forces doing this?
Well, I would imagine it's come up in discussions and conversations over the last year or so, Karen. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to know about the involvement of the armed forces. I'd like to know, am I going to be able to go to my family doctor? I would like to know about neighborhood pharmacies. I would like to know about enlisting volunteers, whether it's retired doctors, retired nurses, people in nursing school, all of this kind of stuff. So, people who do St. John Ambulance, lifeguards, anybody who's trained to do any kind of health care, whatever the case might be. It has to be a monumental effort to get this done. So
wouldn't the armed forces be a monumental effort?
Well, yeah, I mean, but the armed forces, I don't even know if the armed forces are going to be enough.
I don't think so.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, I wish they were. Honestly, I would feel better if they were.
But you think we're behind? You'd say we're behind. All right, Karen. I thank you for your call.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. Okay. Let's take a few more. There's a free line there. We have some time to fit some people in here. To Eric in Barhaven. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Eric. Ahead, behind, right on time, Eric? What do you think?
By any objective measure, behind.
Okay. Yeah.
Any objective measure on the face of this planet, behind. And by the way, this is the first time caller on a smartphone.
You're on a what, sir?
On a smartphone.
On a smartphone, okay.
Because I don't have any power to my landline.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
So anyway, and if you add Junior's rhetoric in there, we're much further behind than by any objective measure I indicated before. So, I feel sorry for the people of this province and for the people of this country, because I think we're going to suffer long and hard before we're delivered from this. And by the way, Rob, the City of Ottawa's webpage has the 4 major community clinics located, so that's on their webpage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
By any objective measure, he says we are behind. 750-1310. Rick Hintonburg. Good morning, Rick.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning, Rick. Great to hear from you again. Are we on time? Are we behind schedule? Are we ahead of schedule? What do you think here?
It's a gong show.
Gong show. So
it really is.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Why they're doing it this way? I'm in my 80s now.
Yeah.
And I'm not just whining for myself, but there must be lots of people in the same boat as I am. I'm in my 80s. I have a couple of underlying health conditions, but they're and I live alone.
Yeah.
Don't have a computer.
Right.
I don't have anybody to fetch and carry my groceries. I do it myself. So I got to go out every week. And the thing is, with the flu shots, I got them either from my doctor's office, which incidentally has been closed since March, and either that from the doctor's office or from the pharmacy, which was great when it was from the pharmacy.
Yep.
And also, all these seniors buildings that OCH is running all have seniors lounges in them. And those lounges are used during election time as polling stations. They're perfect for vaccination centers. But instead, I'm going to have to drag myself to wherever, God knows where, this arena or whatever it is.
Right.
And line up and try and book on a computer, which I don't have. So it's like I've been thrown, not only me, but there must be thousands out there that have been thrown under the bus. And nobody's addressing that question at all.
Okay.
The whole thing is a gong show. I mean, I just heard on the radio this morning that Australia is vaccinated 90% of their 80 plus. And where are we? Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, 4 people out of every 100 in the country. 4 people in Canada. Yeah. 4 people. Yeah. 4.2 actually. Yeah. Okay, Rick. Yeah. Thank you, Rick. All the best, sir. Yeah. All the best. I want to fit in a few more here. We'll take these final 3 votes. Marie.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah.
I think we're behind. And if I just may add a couple of things, I think we were behind from the very beginning when Trudeau was going through all of his. Can you just imagine if Stephen Harper was the Prime Minister? He would have been tar and feathered by now. But going back to, I think Ontario is behind, and my own personal opinion, and I won't keep long, because I know there's a couple more. My own personal opinion, I think since Hillier came in and sort of, it's gotten a little bit more behind, or a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think it was going well before that.
Okay. Thank you, Marie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Rodney.
Hello.
Morning, Rodney.
Yeah. Hey, we're way ahead of where I thought we'd be like a year ago.
Oh, really?
And just to make a little correction on Australia, and I was going to throw that back at you earlier in the week when you mentioned something about vaccines. Australia just started doing vaccination this week, and if you look at the big picture, for a long time, and even at the end of the summer, there's going to be more vaccines sold than there are manufactured. So we're one of the lucky countries getting some. You know, South Africa only just made a deal that made a big squawk. It probably was part of the cutback with the EU. They paid.
So you think we're ahead of the game?
They paid 2.5
Rodney,
times.
you think we're ahead of the game? Yeah, you think we're ahead of the game? I got you. I just, Rodney, you called a bit late today. And I'm going to take one more, and it's Stuart. Go ahead, Stuart.
Hey.
Hi.
Rob, we're way behind here.
Way behind. Okay.
Way behind.
Yeah.
My sister is a snowbird in Arizona,
in
Tucson, and she's younger than myself. She's in her early 60s, and she went to Safeway with her husband. Her husband was older.
Safeway.
And they're both fully vaccinated now.
Wow.
Yes.
At Safeway.
At Safeway.
She can get a loaf of bread and a quart of milk at the same
That's
time.
Right, and get her vaccination.
Yeah.
We
incredible.
are going to be in serious trouble here when the U.S. starts up, and Canada is going to be so far behind. They're going to be wanting to open the border, and we will not be able to open the border here in Canada, I am sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for all your calls. It turned into a very busy hour. I have it 13-3. Nobody said we're on time. Like kind of on track, on schedule. 3 people thought we were actually ahead of the game. 11 and a half months in, but 13 said we're not only. Was the consensus that we are behind? I believe you could consider the consensus to be we are way behind. That's it. Talk Back Hour. Dr. Vera Etches after the news on City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 25th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -7. It feels like -16. In Smiths Falls, -5, feeling like -11. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Much of the power has been restored in areas of Tanglewood, Centre Point, Cityview, and Barhaven. Still scattered power outages in those areas, though, and Hydro Ottawa says the outages are weather-related. Crews are working on the problems, and if you are still without power, it's hoped to be fully restored by 12:30 this afternoon. Latest COVID infection numbers from the province show 1,158 more cases today. Now, the province says there are 64 cases in Ottawa, but OPH says the number is 62, along with 2 more deaths. According to the province, there were no new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 20 more in Eastern Ontario's health unit, and 4 in Renfrew. 66,400 tests were completed. The hotspots, Toronto had 339 new cases, while there were 204 in Peel. There have also been 24 more deaths reported province-wide. After announcing Ottawa could soon be heading to red in the provincial framework for restrictions due to COVID-19, Ottawa's top doctor is explaining how the extended restrictions affect someone's mental health. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches tells the Rob Snow Show the prolonged restrictions and guidelines implemented to slow the spread of COVID-19 is impacting residents' mental health.
Psychologically, it's just hard to stay in a high level of vigilance.
The doctor adds when there's an announcement over and over of restrictions being eased and more opening up, it triggers relaxing among residents. She says this leads to people getting together with more contacts, which she feels happened in Ottawa right as news of schools reopening came. Dr. Etches does feel everyone is working hard when it comes to wearing masks, but the risk of transmission comes when people take a break and get close to someone else. Alex Gouge, City News.
Now, Dr. Etches' full interview coming up on the Rob Snow Show in just moments from now. City News time, 11:03. Orange Air Ambulance responded to the scene of a 2-vehicle collision at Mitch Owens and Ramseyville Road this morning. It was just before 9 o'clock. Emergency crews were called to the scene. A van and truck had collided. Fire crews arrived and confirmed occupants of the van were trapped inside. Took about 5 minutes to get one person out of the vehicle. Crews then worked on providing care to the person who was still trapped and was injured. The van was heavily damaged. Specialized equipment had to be used to remove that person from the vehicle, and that person was taken into the care of paramedics until Orange Air could respond to the scene. Mitch Owens Road closed in both directions between John Quinn and 8th Line roads, where Ramseyville Road is closed south of Rideau. You're asked to avoid that area. City News time, 11:04. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It'll be cleanup day today after yesterday's snowfall. We've already reached our high for the day. It was near the freezing mark in many areas early this morning. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about -5, feeling like -10 with the wind. Chance of flurries tonight, a low near -18. And for tomorrow, sun and cloud near 0. For today, already reached the high, 0.
And right now in Ottawa, there's some drifting snow, -7 degrees. It feels like -16 in the wind. In Smiths Falls, it's -5 and feeling like -11. Hate crime incidents reported to Ottawa police went up 57% in 2020 compared to the previous year. After 116 cases were reported in 2019, it jumped to 182 last year. Ottawa police say the most serious incidents involve things like assault, threats, harassment, and theft. The groups being singled out in these 182 reported cases: Black, Jewish, East and Southeast Asian, LGBTQ, and Muslim. Out of the reported incidents last year, 24 people were charged with 58 counts of various hate-motivated offenses. If you or someone you know has been the victim of a hate-motivated crime, you're asked to contact Ottawa Police Hate and Bias Crime Unit. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We have a better idea this morning what the city's plan is to get us vaccinated, and to review what we know so far, and to talk about the current conditions with the virus in our community. We're joined once more by the medical officer of health for the city of Ottawa, Dr. Vera Etches. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you. I'm so glad you could take the time for us this morning. I'd like to start with kind of the state of the pandemic, if you don't mind. And I'd like to start with kind of a good news, bad news kind of look at the state of things. And, you know, things can be so doomy, gloomy sometimes. Why don't we start with the good news? What, in your opinion, are we doing right? What's going our way right now with COVID-19 in Ottawa?
Well, I'm very thankful for all the hard work people are doing. We had a rapid rise in COVID levels in the community, very clear across all the measures following the Christmas holidays and the holidays in December. And that was the social connections that just grew and gave the virus the chance to spread. But we tackled that. We brought it right down as a community, and that was excellent. It got us into the provincial framework, the level of orange. You know, there's different dimensions, numbers that the province uses. And I just need people to know that that lovely decline has stopped in many measures. It looks like, in fact, the rate's going back up. And the province uses those rates to have that conversation every week about which color, should you be in. So we're heading towards the red. That's the
bad news.
Hard thing to hear.
Yeah. What do you think is going on there? Is that because of the variants of concern, Doctor?
Not yet. I can't say that, but that is one of the reasons, the province wants to be quick to tighten things up if there's any sign of things going up, because there are more variants. We have this information on our website. We post daily. In Ottawa, we've only detected 9 people of all the people who've tested positive, and, in the last 7 days, that's 364 people have tested positive. We've found 9 people who were positive actually over the last number of weeks. So it's not a huge percentage in Ottawa at this time, but that's a concern because it spreads more easily. What I think is going on is that psychologically it's just hard to stay in a high level of vigilance. And when we see over and over throughout this pandemic, there's an announcement that we're getting close, things are going to open up, it seems to trigger a little bit of relaxation in the number of contacts we have. Again, that key driver is the people we come into close contact with. And so, as I say, that happened probably as we were talking about getting kids back to school and then starting to open things. There is a little bit of just finding more COVID. That is possible because more people are being tested now that kids are back in school. And we're also saying anyone in a household with even just one symptom now of COVID, we need you to be tested to make sure it's not COVID, because it could be, and we're trying to be very careful with the variants on the horizon.
Okay.
So it's just that, unfortunately, a few measures are pointing towards this being a real increase. It's not just about the testing.
But we're getting a little lax with our social interactions, you think?
It is.
Kind of letting our guard down a bit.
People are working hard to wear masks at work. People are wearing shield, eye protection. It's just when they take a break and they're too close to someone else, that's still a risk of transmission. And when we have friends over, if we're doing that inside and we just share the same airspace for too long, that increases the risk. So I encourage people to continue to visit with others outdoors, keeping the 2 meters distance, even wearing the masks. All these layers of protection help decrease COVID transmission, even the variants.
Okay. People over the age of 80 in some of the city's high-risk neighborhoods for COVID-19 will get vaccinations starting next week, which is 2 weeks before the over 80 years old rollout begins across the province. Why is that decision being made in our city, Doctor?
Well, I want people over 80 to have the vaccine as soon as they can, because I see that population in the data is at the highest risk of hospitalization and death. And I want to prevent that with the vaccine. We've been able to protect people over 80 in long-term care homes and retirement homes, and I'm very encouraged by that. I think that was the right place to start. But more people over 80 live in the community, and we need to start getting protection to that population. So as soon as we can, it's very small numbers of doses of vaccine that are available to start, but we wanted to start. And, you know, when we look at all of Ottawa, there's 43,000 people over 80.
Wow. Okay.
And so we don't have that much vaccine. So we did need to choose within the population of people over 80, where would we have the most impact and the best effect to prevent hospitalizations. It's where people are at greatest risk of hospitalization. So that's why we're using a neighborhood-based approach to begin. But everyone will have access, and that's the next step. I actually think we're hearing encouraging signs. The volume of vaccine will increase. We'll be able to open larger clinics and say anyone over 80, just come. But we're not quite there yet. And that large volume needs a good booking system. It needs a good tool to handle that as well. And so we are looking forward to the provincial support for that.
Okay. Just on this high-risk community designation, how do you determine that a neighborhood or a community in the city is high risk? What are the determining factors there?
Yeah, I encourage people to take a look at the data we have on our website. There's maps that we produce. There are maps that are done by neighborhood. We update them once a month. We don't update them more regularly than that because some of the neighborhoods are very small numbers and we just need to protect privacy. But you can see over time there are neighborhoods that consistently have higher rates of COVID. And in fact, we see this has been pretty consistent, and those neighborhoods tend to be more deprived neighborhoods in terms of people who are living with less advantage, lower incomes, people who are facing racism and discrimination, more racialized communities.
More crowded housing situations.
Exactly. And people tend to be working in jobs that provide more exposure potentially to COVID. So we've found that connection when we looked at long-term care home staff. Personal support workers are lower paid, often from racialized communities, and tend to live in these neighborhoods. So that's just one example, but you can see how different variables line up, and it is not just the number of people that test positive, the rate. It's also linked to higher hospitalizations, 2.5 times, as well as death, over 3 times the risk of death. And so we need to tackle that.
Okay. There seems to be an emerging debate about whether the vaccination rollout plan itself is too age-specific. And that maybe some people who maybe should be closer to the front of the line are instead being left behind. For example, okay, what if there's a perfectly healthy 70-year-old, but they might be ahead of a 40-year-old school teacher or a bus driver or somebody who is in very active in the community, teaching school children, driving people on public transit. I would like to know what you think about that.
Well, Rob, it is hard for me to make a general statement that applies to everybody because there are particular situations where people may be at higher risk. And the province is going to give us more direction when it comes to phase 2. But I do want to say that 70-year-old, there is absolutely no question that that person is at higher risk of hospitalization and death by far compared to a 40-year-old teacher. It's in the data, but we know teachers are essential, and so the province is trying to build in an approach that takes into account various concerns. When I'm looking at it, I want to protect hospitalizations, prevent them, because that's been the pressure on the health system that's been driving some of the lockdowns. So I think that's where you see the focus on age.
Okay. Finally, we are now 11 and a half months since the declaration of the pandemic by the World Health Organization, and people are getting vaccinated, which is good. Maybe a little slower than some people would prefer. I'd like to know what you think about just the idea that people are getting vaccinated now. When all of this began back in March of last year, and to see this happening now, do you think we're are we ahead of where you thought we would be by now? Are we about where you thought we would be by now? Are we behind where you thought we would be by now? What's your sense of it, Doctor?
I'm very pleased that we have a vaccine. It is exceeding my expectations. We have 2 vaccines. We have 4 vaccines probably here are coming. This is incredible. I even in the early days of the pandemic stopped talking about vaccine as one of the tools because I couldn't see it in the near future. But then, we were planning for vaccine coming. We knew this would be ideal, and we used our flu season to plan for how we would roll out COVID vaccine. And so, this is what we need to do as quickly as we can. As soon as the supply arrives, we need to be using it. It is a wonderful tool.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor, to you and your entire team there at Ottawa Public Health for your continued work in this battle against COVID-19, and thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you for helping share the news. Bye-bye.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store, a popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Again, the vaccination program for the country, for the province, is very much in focus for us. What role will your local pharmacist play? Justin Bates is the CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association and joins me this morning on City News. Good morning, Justin Bates. Nice to hear from you.
Nice to hear from you, and thanks for having me on the program this morning.
Great pleasure. What role will pharmacists in Ontario play in the vaccination rollout?
Well, I think the good news for Ontario residents is that pharmacists will play a significant role as we determine the distribution, logistics, and overall allocation that's going to go to the community pharmacies across the province, because it's all about convenience and ensuring patients have choice, and I think most importantly is the access issue. So we know this is going to be a joint effort with primary care physicians and the public health mass immunization clinics, but with our footprint of 4,600 stores across the province in every community, and with Ontario residents all living within at least 3 kilometers of a pharmacy, we think that is going to play a huge role in ensuring everybody gets vaccinated.
Okay. Now, with that being said, what have you been told by the government? What have they told you?
I think this is a really interesting part of it, because, as you know, the government has put forward some central planning around parameters such as the priority populations, the stages or phases of the vaccination rollout, which we're now transitioning from 1 to 2, as well as priority populations that have been updated most recently in the last couple of weeks. So we have been engaged with the provincial task force as well as local public health units and with the Ministry of Health to determine both a fair and reasonable fee for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians to provide and administer the vaccine, and then to determine all of the distribution logistics that's going to be required to have a smooth rollout. So we're actively working on those. There's a tabletop exercise that's underway where we're developing a playbook that will look at all kinds of scenarios, including how patients are going to book their appointments, how we're going to manage the education, addressing the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine, and coordinate that with the other healthcare providers as well.
So it sounds like there's a lot still to figure out, with all due respect, Mr. Bates.
Well, I think our success in the flu program has demonstrated that not only do we have the infrastructure, technology, and the human resources to be able to scale up, that we're going to leverage a lot of those lessons learned. And I think most of this planning is a matter of turning the switch on with supply. Pharmacists are ready. They have the expertise and training to do this. And certainly we believe we can do up to 46 vaccinations per pharmacy per day, which will, depending on the number of stores that participate, it could be over 1 million a week that we could add to the capacity of the vaccination program. So we're ready. I think it's just a matter of, is there enough supply to launch into that community rollout phase 2 alongside the other healthcare providers.
1 million a week, 1 million doses a week, just in Ontario? Just in Ontario?
Just Ontario, yeah. So that would be about 30.
That would be helpful, sir. That would be helpful. When do you think this could begin? May 1st, around there?
Well, we're hopeful that we'll be able to do a dry run exercise and eventually follow that with a live pilot with a limited number of stores. In the time frame we have right now is anytime sort of mid to late March to April, and then roll this out in a much more robust manner in terms of adding capacity with additional pharmacies into the spring and summer. So we can turn this around in 72 hours once we have the supply and commitment on the distribution. And we'll work with our local PHUs on the individual vaccination plans that will vary by region.
Is it something pharmacists want to do? They want to be involved.
Professionals certainly do. They see this as an opportunity to step up, protect public health, and keep the economy open. It's certainly an extension of what we do already with vaccination programs that are in place today, whether it's the flu or travel vaccines. And I think this is an important time for pharmacy professionals and all healthcare providers to really provide the necessary resources so that we can pull this off, because it goes without saying that this is an unprecedented undertaking, trying to get this many people vaccinated. So we're going to need everyone to chip in, and pharmacists will do their part.
Okay, now, in terms of the kind of the vaccination infrastructure that a pharmacy would need, it would seem to me more challenging with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine because of the needs for cold storage. But you correct me if I'm wrong, in that it might go smoother if it was one of the other vaccines, whether Moderna, AstraZeneca, J&J, whatever the case might be. What needs to happen in the store, in the pharmacy itself, in order to make sure this kind of lifts off okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're quite right that the degree of complexity is different by type of vaccine. So the Pfizer vaccine in particular, it can be thawed and stored in a refrigerator, which all pharmacies have. The challenge there is that it would only have a shelf life of 5 days. So you would have to manage the bookings and patients accordingly. Some pharmacies can have and do have the freezer capabilities, but that's not every pharmacy. So it would limit some of the scale, if you will, and capacity to deliver. But it's not something that we couldn't do. We certainly can. We deal with complex biologics all the time in terms of cold chain distribution and so forth.
Sure.
But I do think that the Moderna vaccine, the soon-to-be-approved AstraZeneca or J&J vaccine, is more conducive to community and distribution because it can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees in a refrigerator for up to 30 days. But even that vaccine has complexity. So once you puncture the vial, there's about 10 doses in each vial, but it has to be used within 6 hours. So you're going to have to manage your appointment bookings based on that, so there's no wastage. And we've seen some of those challenges where there's leftover doses and there's no patients coming in. So what do you do with that? And that's created some controversies as well. But, those are the types of things logistically that we are working on in parallel, and we'll be ready for the community rollout.
Okay, a couple of other quick questions, if you don't mind. Justin Bates is with me. He's the CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association. We're talking about the vaccination plan for Ontario. In terms of human resources, the staffing needs, do you suspect pharmacists would they have to hire people, train people, or do you think the current staff complement in a typical pharmacy would have this well in hand already?
Well, there's two parts to that. One, we do have the capacity today to contribute from a pharmacist perspective. There will be a need to bring on additional resources given the expected demand. And one of the things that's going to help this is that through the regulatory process, the government has enabled pharmacy technicians to participate, and they need to be certified. So many of those technicians are taking courses to get injection certified. But that's going to add...
How long does something like that take? Sorry to interrupt. How long does something like that take to get certified?
It doesn't take too long. There's a written online component, and then there's a physical component to it where you get observed and pass the certification course. So that's ongoing right now. We have a number of them operating to certify pharmacy technicians across the province. And so we'll be ready to add the pharmacy technicians to the labor pool, if you will, in terms of operationalizing this for patients.
Okay, interesting. So, you're not going to do it for free. How do you envision the billing to work? Would a pharmacist bill OHIP, or how do you think that would work?
Yeah, so each of the providers have a billing system that's already in place. For pharmacy, we do bill through the ODB program, the Drugs and Devices branch of the ministry. The system's already in place, so it's just a matter of negotiating a fee structure that would be fair and reasonable, similar to what we do for administering flu shots today.
And how close are you on an agreement there?
We're in the final stages of an agreement, and we're hopeful with a joint communications plan with the ministry we'll be able to disclose that in a more public way in the coming days.
Okay. How much would a pharmacist charge, for example, for a flu shot? It's $20
today,
or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Today, the fee is $7.50 per flu shot.
$7.50. Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Bates, we'll see what happens with it. I thank you again for your time this morning, sir.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's Justin Bates. He's the CEO of the Ontario Pharmacists Association. The nuts and bolts, what it would take to get the pharmacists involved, which they most certainly will be by the sounds of things. More political reaction. Stephen Del Duca is the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. He's going to join me coming up right after our newscast on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, the 25th of February. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, some sunshine, gusty winds, -8 and a wind chill of -17. Some sunny skies in Smiths Falls as well, -6, wind chill -12. Here's what's making news right now. Happening now in the Barhaven neighborhood, about 600 customers still without power. This is around the Greenbank, Fallowfield, Woodruff, Grenfell Crescent area. Hydro Ottawa crews are responding now. There were a couple of power outages in clusters that had affected about 5,600 customers. Now it's down to about 600, and crews are responding to deal with this particular outage in the Barhaven area. And the ETA to lights back on is around 12:30. Remember, if you encounter any flashing traffic lights, you're to treat those as all-way stops. 2 more deaths in Ottawa due to COVID-19. Ottawa Public Health confirming 62 new cases of the virus in the capital today. Active cases in Ottawa have risen slightly. Since the pandemic began, 439 people in the capital have died because of novel coronavirus. Public Health Ontario reporting 1,138 new cases today, 23 more deaths across the province. Now, elsewhere locally, Eastern Ontario region has 20 new cases. No new cases for Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 4 for Renfrew County and District. Those local health units will update their numbers in the afternoon. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
We're leading the entire country in the number of vaccines administered. You can add up all the vaccines in the entire country and all the provinces. Ontario alone is giving more vaccines than anyone. In fact, we have more people in Ontario who are fully vaccinated, who have received both shots, than all the provinces combined. And I can't wait for the day where we're able to do more, but we're limited by one thing, and I keep saying it. We need vaccines.
Okay, that was Premier Ford yesterday. Also heard from retired General Rick Hillier on phase 2 of the vaccine rollout plan for the province of Ontario. And Premier Ford says we're leading the country here in the province of Ontario under his government. Stephen Del Duca is the Ontario Liberal Party leader, and he joins me this morning on the Rob Snow Show. Welcome back, Mr. Del Duca.
Great to be back. Thanks so much for having me.
So Doug Ford says we're leading the country, sir. What's your reaction to that, sir?
I am look, I think all of your listeners, people right across Ontario, are obviously very fatigued with this pandemic that's been dragging on now for a year. But I think what's almost as fatiguing is listening week after week, month after month, to empty platitudes that are almost Trumpian in nature coming from Doug Ford about how we're the best in Canada and we're doing all this other stuff. And meanwhile, the reality is that just behind those platitudes and his empty rhetoric, Ontario continues to lag behind in so many critical areas. The fact that we just found out this week that Doug Ford is downloading the decision-making to the 34 public health units, that we are going to get our basic virtual portal for seniors over the age of 80 in about 3 weeks from now. I mean, it's farcical. It's a plan that's written on the back of a napkin because he doesn't understand what he's doing, and it's really showing.
Okay, well, on that point, what you say downloading, some others say decentralization, and it actually makes sense. What is your problem with leaving, say, local vaccination planning up to local health units? What's your issue with that?
Yeah, I have no issue with the 34 public health units leading the charge. It's an announcement that should have been made in December, Rob. When we're in March. Now, I know in Ottawa, for example, the public health unit and the leaders there are phenomenal, and they're doing a great job, as the other public health units have across Ontario for the last year. But this was an announcement and a plan that should have been in place in December. So there was, I've spoken with public health units a week ago that did not know they were going to be in charge of this until they read about it or heard about it in the news. This is not how to competently deal with a public health crisis.
Oh, I see.
This is passing the buck, downloading the decision-making, and it's 3 months too late.
So it's not necessarily that you're opposed to, say, in this city, Anthony DeMonte and Dr. Etches largely being in charge with coming up with the finer details, the nuts and bolts of the plan, and these are the facilities that will be booked, and these are the hours they will operate, and these kinds of things. It's that they should have been informed that that's what the province was going to do, say, back in December. That's your case that you're making. Do I have that right? Yeah.
You do have it right, because we've been living with the virus for a year, and we've known the vaccines are coming for months. So why this is always a day late and a dollar short from Doug Ford is just beyond me.
Okay, the online portal to book an appointment goes live March 15th. Your reaction to that, please, sir?
Again, I don't understand why Ontario has to lag behind other parts of Canada. I don't think we should be considered second-class citizens here in this province. And again, weeks and weeks ago, other parts of Canada were prepping this stuff. They were getting it ready. And we heard a lot of complaining, including in that clip you played a second ago about Doug Ford pointing the fingers at Ottawa about vaccines arriving in Ontario. Guess what? They're here, hundreds and hundreds of thousands more. And yet people over the age of 80, including people like my parents, have to wait 3 more weeks to find out when they can go onto a basic online portal. There was no reason that it should have come to this. You know, when you prepare properly in advance, you set yourself up for success. When you cram at the last second and do it on the back of a napkin like Doug Ford does, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Okay, well, he said we want to get it right, that maybe Alberta moved too soon. This is what the Premier said yesterday.
In saying that, let's look at Alberta. Let's take Alberta, then I'll move over to Quebec. And they're both great provinces, both great premiers there. They put up their website and bang, it's crashed.
They put up their website and bang, it's crashed. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Why didn't Doug Ford start working on the website last summer? Why didn't he do it in the fall? Why he also said yesterday, by the way, you can't really compare Alberta and Ontario because we have a larger population. I mean, how absurd is that? The principle remains the same. When you prepare, when you're competent, when you understand what your job is, you set yourself and your people up for success. And Doug Ford has not done that. And this list is endless, by the way. It's not just about vaccines. Look
what else is on your list then?
Well, look what they said yesterday about personal support workers. Yesterday they announced this with lots of fanfare that they're going to be hiring up and training 6,000 new personal support workers, paying for their training, public community call. It's all good.
Yeah.
That part of the announcement's great.
Sure.
Do you know when Quebec started their recruitment and training of personal support workers? June 2nd of last year.
Yeah.
And they've done thousands. They've actually hired up, trained, and they have thousands of personal support workers. Do you know, it took Doug Ford 8 months to do what his good friend, as he calls him, in Quebec did last June.
Yeah.
And he wants to...
Well, I guess, Mr. Del Duca, and I don't want to parrot the Premier, but Doug Ford is doing what the Ontario Liberals didn't do in 15 years in government, sir.
Look, the Canadian Armed Forces report exposing the tragic circumstances during this pandemic and long-term care came out in May. Quebec recognized they had a grave problem in that sector, just like we do in Ontario. And I'm not absolving myself or the Ontario Liberals for what we did or didn't do for 15 years. I've acknowledged that on your program and others. But that report from the Canadian Armed Forces came out in May. Quebec managed to move on this in June. Doug Ford's waited 8 or 9 months, and now he wants you to pat himself on the back. And by the way, he chose to do it this week because his Minister of Health and his Minister of Long-Term Care are about to testify before the Independent Commission. This is about political cover for him and his ministers and not our vulnerable seniors in long-term care.
Okay, I would like to get where you are because a lot of people wonder just how much of this is not just Doug Ford's problem with, if vaccinations are coming too late or there are problems booking appointments, but actually how much of this is the fault of the federal government and the problems with supply chains and actual shipments of vaccines that have been procured by the federal Liberals, Mr. Del Duca. How much blame goes to Justin Trudeau and his team?
But Rob, think about this logically for a quick second.
All right. Okay.
So I acknowledge there have been frustrating delays in the supply. Look, that's a fact. Everybody knows it. And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for the Prime Minister, I'm sure he's frustrated too. But here's the thing. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of vaccines that have now arrived in Ontario. They're here. They're not fictional. They're not theoretical. They're here. And my parents who are in their 80s have to wait 3 more weeks to get onto a basic virtual portal. Because even though Doug Ford has spent weeks wagging at the Prime Minister, obsessed with getting beer into 7-Eleven stores, for example.
Well, I think it's 7-Eleven who's obsessed with getting beer into 7-Eleven.
Well, it's not 7-Eleven who had a secret meeting down there by themselves in Texas a year ago. It was Doug Ford who chose not to tell any of us he was doing that. That's a whole different story. My point is, while Doug Ford was finger-wagging at the Prime Minister and blaming everybody else, and down in Texas talking about beer in 7-Eleven stores, he wasn't working on things like the basic portal. So look, where I come from, you can certainly criticize the federal government for not having the right supply, but simultaneous to that, you should be working on your homework. You should be focusing on what you're responsible for so that now when the vaccines have actually arrived, you're ready to go. It's seamless. That's what the people of Ontario want. They don't want levels of government fighting with each other. They want them to work together. And instead, vaccines are here. Doug Ford is not ready. And now he's blaming everybody else and saying, but Ontario's better than the rest of the country, when that's clearly not true.
Now, a couple of other things. Cabinet, as part of this, Cabinet has to decide who is essential, who are essential workers, right? Now, as much as I would like to consider myself to be essential, and when it comes to actually the Reopening Ontario Act, I am considered essential because news media is considered essential. But I'm not even 50 yet, and I'm in pretty good health, and I'm just a radio guy. So when it comes to vaccines, I don't mind waiting, my turn. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do.
You are essential, but in the end, you're a politician, Mr. Del Duca.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
That's all I am.
If we polled the public, are politicians essential? I don't know I don't think we'd want to see the results of that poll.
I think we both know how ugly that would look.
So, do you think, for example, teachers? Should teachers be near the front of the line, or operators of public transit? TTC, OC Transpo, whatever the case might be. Give me your sense of that, sir.
Yeah. So look, generally speaking, I think public health expertise should lead the way on this. So now that they've downloaded the decision making and the exercise to the public health units, I think that they should convene, if they haven't already, a conversation with all the heads of all 34 public health units and those who do that work, chief medical officers of health and their deputies province-wide, to figure this out. So there's a uniform approach across Ontario, but I do think any woman or man who is in a situation in the public where they're consistently in contact with people regularly, where the people they're talking to or dealing with on a regular basis could be perceived as vulnerable. Okay. So I would include transit operators, teachers, obviously everybody on the front lines in medicine or healthcare, people who are working in congregate settings, could be group homes, could be for the disabled or development.
Prison guards, whatever the case might be.
All of it. Yeah. I think they should be near, if not at the front of the line, very close to the front of the line, and certainly far ahead of politicians.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Del Duca. Always good, sir, to have you on.
Okay, Rob.
Thanks again. Yep. Stephen Del Duca is the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. We'll be right back on City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online. And the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
As part of the city's vaccination program, people over the age of 80 in some high-risk neighborhoods in Ottawa will start being vaccinated some as soon as next week. For more on this particular aspect of our fight against COVID-19 in Ottawa, we're joined by Soraya Allibhai, COVID-19 coordinator at the Southeast Ottawa Community Health Centre. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's very nice to speak to you. Tell us more about the Southeast Ottawa Community Health Centre. Who do you serve there?
So we serve the entire South End location. We have other programs that are not catchment-based, but we have programs ranging from breastfeeding sessions to serving our senior population. We offer health promotion programs as well as primary care supports.
Okay. So would a number of these high-risk neighborhoods be in your catchment area then?
Yes, they are.
Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, last night your health center held an information session to bust myths about COVID-19 and the vaccination program. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing with COVID-19 in your community and informing the public about some of the risks of this disease?
So what we're seeing is that the area that we serve, a lot of our community members are the ones who are the essential workers who are going out into nursing homes, into high-risk jobs on a day-to-day basis and putting themselves at risk. These are people who are serving us in the fast food restaurants and taking the bus and therefore, returning back home. Having been impacted by the risk of contracting COVID-19.
Okay. Have you run into vaccine hesitancy or skepticism or, fear of getting vaccinated or even fear of the healthcare system? From what I have heard and seen on the news, that can be a problem.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot from our community. And they're hesitant because of the rollout of the vaccine being so quick. Also, they have questions regarding, is it going to alter their DNA? Is the product that they're getting into their arms halal? So there are a lot of hesitancy that are coming from our community members.
How do you overcome that? How do you reassure people?
So over the last year, since COVID started, we've been working with our partners within the communities, and we've been doing a lot of door knocks and what we call boots to the ground, and we've been trying to reach our community members face-to-face and talk to them and educate them and inform them about what is COVID-wise messaging, what one needs to do. We've actually been giving out masks and sanitizers as we're going door to door, and also providing additional information such as, the intake line at Southeast Ottawa Community Health Centre.
Okay. Do you think that's effective? Is it working?
We have noticed, because we've gone back to our neighborhoods again and again, and we have noticed, in the beginning, people were not, always always wearing masks. Right. And so we are noticing more and more that people are utilizing the masks. They are, wearing them. Education is important, informing people, and that does go a long way.
Well, that's good. That's good. So I want to get a little bit more into why some of the communities served by your community health center, why they have experienced higher rates of COVID-19 than other communities in Ottawa. What are some of the factors there? Can you speak to that, please?
Well, one of the factors, as I mentioned earlier, is just the fact that they're working frontline jobs, and they are putting themselves at risk. They also don't have the means to take a car, because they can't afford it. So they're
riding public transit. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, again, you're going to be with more people in the public and putting yourself again at risk. Also, some of the neighborhoods are very high-dense neighborhoods. They're living with multiple households. There are larger family households, larger sizes. So there are there's a lot of things that impact why there's a high rate of COVID.
Yeah. Multi-generational homes, right? Maybe 3 generations living in the same home. right?
That's correct. And, larger family households, you might have 6 children and then a grandparent living with you. So there are a lot of factors, and it's a dense community, right? It's lots of like apartment buildings and townhouses.
Yeah.
So it's a very dense populated area.
What about language? Is that a barrier to, say, information, for example? Or?
Absolutely. The population listens to their media from back home. They also are on, there's certain groups on social media that they belong to. And so when the messages do come in that, drink hot water and you'll get better and COVID will go away, they listen to those messages, right? They tend not to listen to maybe what I call the mainstream media as much. So it's been also an education for us as we're going into the community and doing our boots to the ground, saying, try and listen to Ottawa Public Health and get on their website, because that's the most current and updated information that they can receive. And so we do try and promote that try and receive your messages from the federal government and Ottawa Public Health.
Generally speaking, given what we know so far about the rollout of vaccines in Ottawa, what do you think of the plan?
I think that the decision has been a very challenging decision. But, I agree with the approach of vaccinating people that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. And I think that the vaccine sequencing decision that has been made with the data that they have at the level, at the provincial level.
Do you feel as though you're in the loop, that you're part of the discussion, that if you want to provide input, that they're actually listening to you, people with authority?
Yes. We have been working closely with Ottawa Public Health as well as our partners at the Ottawa Health Team, which is Équipe Santé Ottawa, and we have 20 partners around the table, and that we've been communicating since the beginning of COVID. And as a group, as the Ottawa Health Team group, we have been communicating our messages directly to the ministry.
So if people right now, Soraya Allibhai, if they're listening right now and they're from your area, Southeast Ottawa, and they would want to know more information about the vaccination program, when they might be able to get a vaccine, how would you direct them? Where should they go for information? What would be?
So what I would say is check out the Ottawa Public Health website. They're current and updated, and they will have information, I believe, March 1st in terms of how and where to go to register.
Okay.
And if all else fails, you can certainly give us a call at Southeast Ottawa, and we will guide you in the right direction and answer all your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the time this morning. Best of luck with everything.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now